Welcome to our deep dive into revolutions. You know, I'm super fascinated by all the material you sent over about how revolutions have reshaped the world, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to kind of dig in with you and see what we can uncover.
Well, it's definitely more than just like toppling regimes, right? It's about,
Right.
these completely new concepts, freedom,
Yeah.
like how do we even govern ourselves, equality,
Yeah.
all this stuff that
Yeah.
like we kind of take for granted now, but were totally radical back then.
Right. And the sources you gave me really highlight how these ideas kind of traveled and transformed, over time. It's fascinating.
Exactly what we'll be exploring, how these revolutions weren't just like isolated events, but part of this larger ongoing conversation about power and justice and even like what a society should even be.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the American Revolution. I mean, we all know the story of the fight for independence and all that, but the source material, it goes deeper, right? It's not just breaking away from Britain. It's the whole philosophy behind the break.
It gets really interesting here because we see guys like, Enlightenment thinkers like Locke and Montesquieu having this direct impact. So the Declaration of Independence, it wasn't just like a list of complaints.
Right.
It was like a philosophical statement drawing on these ideas of natural rights and social contracts and popular sovereignty.
So they weren't just rebelling against British rule.
Right.
They were proposing a whole new model of government.
Exactly.
But the sources also point out how even that model was kind of riddled with contradictions even in its early stages.
Oh, totally. I mean, you have these grand pronouncements about all men are created equal.
Right.
But slavery's still going on.
Yeah.
You have this establishment of a republic based on the consent of the governed.
Right.
But voting rights are limited to a small fraction of the population.
Yeah, it's so interesting, that tension between the ideals and the reality.
Yeah.
And it seems to be a recurring theme in these revolutions. And speaking of tensions, France, just a few years later, things get really heated.
Oh, yeah. They take those American ideals, liberty, equality, fraternity, and just throw them in a pressure cooker.
Right.
It's way more violent, radical upheaval, driven by extreme economic inequality and this sense that the whole system's just rotten, like to its core.
Storming the Bastille, I mean, that's not just a protest.
Yeah.
It's like a symbolic dismantling of the old order.
Yeah.
But the sources also paint a picture of how quickly things spiraled.
Oh, yeah.
Out of control.
Like the Reign of Terror.
Yeah.
It's just this stark reminder that revolutions can, devour their own children. The very people who led the charge for liberty ended up perpetrating this horrific violence in the name of the revolution.
It really makes you think about those inherent dangers, that revolutionary fervor.
Right.
How easily ideals can get twisted and used to justify brutality. But even with all the bloodshed, the French Revolution had a lasting impact.
Oh, absolutely. Those core principles, liberty, equality, fraternity, they resonated far beyond France's borders.
Yeah.
They became this rallying cry for anyone trying to challenge oppressive regimes and demand a more just society.
It's amazing. And that brings us to a revolution
that
I think the sources say often gets overshadowed, but is no less significant. The Haitian Revolution.
This is where those lofty ideals of the Enlightenment are put to the ultimate test.
Okay.
You got enslaved Africans in the French colony of Saint-Domingue.
Yeah.
They rise up, inspired by what's happening in France, and they demand not just independence, but also the abolition of slavery.
Wow. That must have been, I mean, talk about audacious. What did the sources say about the odds of success? I mean, they were up against one of the most powerful empires in the world.
The odds were totally stacked against them.
Yeah.
But they had something the French didn't anticipate, this just unwavering commitment to freedom. I mean, they were fighting for their very survival.
Wow.
For the right to simply exist as human beings.
And they succeeded. That's just incredible to think about the courage, the determination it must have taken to face down such overwhelming odds.
It's amazing. The Haitian Revolution is just a testament to the sheer power of human will.
Yeah.
I mean, they not only won their independence,
right.
they created the first Black-led republic.
Wow.
In the Western Hemisphere.
That's a powerful blow against colonialism.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like this beacon of hope for those struggling for liberation around the world.
Totally.
It makes me think about how these revolutions are all interconnected, building upon each other, inspiring one another.
That's a crucial insight. I mean, the Haitian Revolution wasn't just a response to French oppression. It was also fueled by, the ideas of the American and French revolutions. Right. This concept of liberty traveled across the Atlantic and took root in these new and unexpected ways.
So we see this ripple effect where the pursuit of freedom in one place ignites the fight for freedom in another.
Totally.
And this theme of interconnectedness, it seems to continue as we move into the Industrial Revolution.
Now, this revolution wasn't about storming palaces or declarations of independence or anything like that.
Right.
It was about this
fundamental shift
in how goods were produced, how wealth was generated, and ultimately how society itself was structured.
Right. But this transformation, it didn't come without a cost.
It did not.
Yeah.
No.
The sources that we have, they highlight how the Industrial Revolution, while bringing about all this incredible advancement, also created new forms of inequality.
Right.
And exploitation.
Yeah, you see the emergence of this whole new class of industrial workers who are subjected to harsh working conditions, low wages.
Yeah.
And this gives rise to new ideologies, new ways of thinking about this relationship between labor and capital.
Thinkers like Karl Marx emerge, right?
Really? Yeah.
Offering a critique of capitalism, advocating for the rights of the working class. It's fascinating how the Industrial Revolution, in a way, sparked its own...
Yeah, it's almost like this dialectical process.
Right.
Where one revolution gives rise to its antithesis.
Yeah.
Leading to new struggles, new demands for change.
Just amazing.
And that tension between capital and labor, between the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
I mean, that continues to shape our world today.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's like history is this ongoing conversation, right? One revolution kind of sparks a debate and another one tries to answer it and so on.
Yeah, and then we move into the 20th century.
Right.
And those debates get even more intense. Yeah. I mean, the Russian Revolution, for example, took Marx's ideas.
Right.
And tried to,
put them into practice.
Put them into practice,
And
that attempt
had massive ripple effects. I mean, from what I'm seeing in the sources, the Russian Revolution wasn't just about Russia.
Yeah.
It sent shockwaves across the globe, challenging the very foundation of the existing world order.
The fall of the Tsar, the rise of the Bolsheviks, the creation of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
This wasn't just regime change.
Right.
This was a completely different way of organizing society, a direct challenge to capitalist systems.
And it's interesting to see how the sources depict the global reaction. You know, some saw it as this terrifying example of communist tyranny, while others were inspired by its promise of social justice and economic equality.
The Russian Revolution became this focal point for all these anxieties and aspirations of the 20th century.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It sparked these debates about the role of the state, the distribution of wealth, even the definition of freedom.
It's incredible. And those debates were happening against the backdrop of another major upheaval, the decolonization wave.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the entire world map was being redrawn as colonized people rose up and demanded independence.
This wave was fueled by the same ideas that had been percolating for centuries, self-determination, freedom from oppression, the right to govern oneself.
It's powerful.
But it also had its own unique character, shaped by the specific experiences of colonized people.
The sources highlight leaders like Gandhi in India, who advocated for nonviolent resistance, and Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, who championed Pan-Africanism. It's clear that
the decolonization wave wasn't a monolithic movement.
No.
But a tapestry of diverse struggles.
Yeah, each country, each region had its own path
right.
to independence, its own internal dynamics.
Right.
But they were all united by this fundamental yearning for freedom and the rejection of colonial rule.
And it's striking how even after achieving independence, many of these newly formed nations continued to grapple with the legacy of colonialism.
Oh, totally.
You know, economic inequality, political instability.
Yeah.
The challenges of building new institutions.
Yeah. These were issues that reverberated.
Oh, for sure.
Long after the flags of independence were raised.
Yeah, decolonization wasn't a simple fix.
Right.
It was this messy, ongoing process full of setbacks and triumphs.
Right.
And it reminds us that revolutions are more than just moments in time.
Yeah.
They're these long, complex chapters in the story of human history.
That's such an important point. We often focus on the dramatic events, the revolutions that make the headlines. Yeah. But the real work of change often happens in the aftermath.
It does.
In the long, slow process of rebuilding, reimagining what's possible.
Absolutely. And that process can take many forms.
Right.
Sometimes it's about reforming existing systems. Sometimes it's about building entirely new ones.
Right.
And sometimes it's about revolutions that don't involve armies or borders, but ideas and identities.
And speaking of revolutions that transcend borders, the sources highlight the civil rights movement in the United States as this pivotal moment in the global struggle for equality.
It wasn't just about achieving legal rights to the African Americans. It was about challenging these deeply ingrained systems of racism and prejudice.
Yeah. The civil rights movement was such a powerful testament to the power of nonviolent resistance and the enduring belief in human dignity.
Figures like Martin Luther King Jr. became global icons, inspiring these movements for social justice far beyond America's shores.
And it's fascinating to see how the sources connect the civil rights movement to other struggles around the world. Yeah. The fight against apartheid in South Africa, feminist movements, LGBTQ plus rights activism. It's like the pursuit of equality, once ignited, becomes this contagious force.
It's about recognizing that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Right. And that those fighting for their own liberation are often connected to this larger web of resistance and solidarity.
So we see how all these revolutions, even when they seem geographically or historically distinct, are part of a shared human story. Yeah. A collective struggle for a more just and equitable world. And that brings us to a revolution.
To a revolution that's
still unfolding.
That's reshaping our world in ways that we're only beginning to understand. Right. The digital revolution.
This one's a bit different, right? It's not about seizing power or toppling regimes, at least not in the traditional sense. It's about information, connection.
Right. And the ways in which technology is transforming, like the very fabric of our societies.
The sources paint a picture of both the immense possibilities and the potential dangers of this digital age. On the one hand,
we have this
unprecedented access
to
information.
New
platforms for communication and collaboration and tools that can really empower individuals and communities.
But on the other hand,
there's the risk of surveillance, misinformation, and the erosion of privacy. We see how social media can be used to spread propaganda, manipulate public opinion, and sow division. We're navigating this uncharted territory where the rules are constantly changing and the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder.
It makes me wonder
if we're even equipped.
Are we equipped to handle this level of technological and social disruption?
That's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Because the digital revolution isn't just about gadgets and algorithms. It's about how we interact with each other. How we form communities. How we make sense of the world around us.
It's true.
It's a revolution that's happening not just in our devices, but in our minds.
And as we try to make sense of it all, keep coming back to this idea of unintended consequences. every revolution, no matter how noble its intentions, seems to unleash these forces that are difficult to control.
It's the paradox of progress.
Right.
We strive to create a better world.
Yeah.
But our efforts often have these unforeseen and sometimes destructive outcomes.
True.
The challenge is to learn from those mistakes, to adapt and evolve, to steer the course of change in a more just and sustainable direction.
So as we wrap up this whirlwind tour of revolutions, I'm left with this sense of both awe and caution. Awe at the sheer power of human ingenuity and this unwavering pursuit of freedom, but also caution about the fragility of progress and the need for constant vigilance in safeguarding the values we hold dear.
That's a perfect summary. Because the story of revolutions isn't this neat and tidy narrative.
No.
It's messy, complex, full of contradictions and unintended consequences. But it's also a story of hope, of resilience, of the enduring human capacity for change.
And as we move forward, it feels like it's so crucial to learn from both the triumphs and the tragedies of these past revolutions. What stands out to you from all this material as the most crucial lessons?
One thing that just jumps out is that revolutions are rarely like a clean break. It's not like you just flip a switch. And everything's different. They're messy. They're ongoing. And they often create new problems. Even as they solve old ones.
The sources really emphasize that, right? Like the American Revolution established this new form of government. But the issue of slavery just festered for almost another century.
Exactly. And the French Revolution, while promoting liberty and equality, also descended into these periods of intense violence and repression. It's a reminder that even the most well-intentioned revolutions can have unintended consequences.
So it's not enough to just fight for change. We also have to think about what comes after.
What comes
after the revolution.
Exactly. How do you build a new society? How do you ensure that those ideals you fought for are actually put into practice?
That's where things get really interesting.
That's where it gets really interesting,
It's not just about changing laws or structures. It's about changing mindsets. It's about creating a culture where those ideals of freedom, equality, and justice are truly embedded, like in the fabric of society.
And that can be a much longer and more difficult process. It's not something that happens overnight.
It requires
sustained effort, education, a willingness to constantly challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. And it also requires us to be honest about the contradictions and shortcomings of our own societies. We can't just celebrate the successes of past revolutions. We also have to acknowledge the ways in which they fell short.
Of their goals. So we're not just inheriting the legacy of these revolutions. We're also inheriting the responsibility to continue the work.
To address
the unfinished business.
The unfinished business.
To make sure that those ideals don't just fade to empty slogans.
It's like we're all part of this ongoing experiment in human progress. And each generation has to grapple with its own set of challenges and opportunities, building upon the foundations laid by those who came before.
And that brings us to the present moment, where we're facing a whole new set of challenges. Climate change, economic inequality, political polarization, and the rapid pace of technological advancement. It feels like we're at another crossroads.
It does.
Where the old systems are failing to address the needs of the present.
And it's in moments like this,
that we need to draw inspiration from those who dare to challenge the status quo, who envisioned a different future and fought to make it a reality.
The revolutions of the past show us that change is possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
But they also remind us.
That
change doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
It requires courage, vision, organization, And a willingness to challenge power.
Absolutely. And it also requires us to be clear about what we're fighting for.
Exactly.
Not just what we're fighting against.
It's not enough to simply tear down the old.
Right.
We need to have a vision for the future.
Right.
A blueprint for a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely.
And we need to be willing to work together to build coalitions, to mobilize our communities, to make that vision a reality.
So as we reflect on all these revolutions, I'm struck by this sense of urgency, but also of possibility.
Right.
We're living in a time of immense challenges, but also of
unprecedented opportunity.
Unprecedented opportunity, exactly.
The question is, what role will each of us play in shaping the future?
Will we be passive bystanders?
Right.
Or will we be active participants?
Right.
Using our voices, our skills, and our resources to create a world that is more sustainable.
More humane.
And more humane. And that's a question that's not just for activists or politicians. It's for every one of us.
Each and every one of us.
Whether it's in our workplaces, our communities, our personal lives.
Right.
We all have the power to make a difference.
To contribute.
To contribute to the ongoing project of human progress.
It's about recognizing that we're not just individuals.
Right.
We're part of a
larger collective.
Yeah. A larger collective. And our actions, no matter how small they may seem, can have this ripple effect.
Right.
Inspiring others.
Yeah.
Contributing to a larger wave of change.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into revolutions, I want to leave you with this thought. The next chapter in this story is being written right now.
It is.
And each of us has the opportunity to pick up a pen and contribute our own verse.
What will your verse say?
Yeah.
What kind of world do you want to create?
Yeah.
What legacy will you leave behind?
That's an incredible note to end on.
Yeah.
This deep dive has really highlighted how revolutions are more than just historical events.
Right.
They're a reflection of the enduring human spirit.
Yeah.
This constant struggle.
A constant struggle,
for a better world.
And that struggle continues.
Yeah.
It's up to each of us to carry the torch forward.
Right.
To learn from the past and to build a future that's worthy of the sacrifices of those who came before us.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
And keep pushing.
Keep pushing for a better tomorrow.